I'm not here to hype a product or push you toward the newest shiny thing. What I want to do is walk through the kind of questions that usually stop people in their tracks when they are looking at a 24-channel mixer. Is it going to fit my workflow? Will it actually improve the sound I'm already getting? Or am I just spending money on more knobs? And most importantly, does it give me enough value for the price tag without turning my setup into a nightmare? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started researching mixers in the 20-channel range, the biggest source of hesitation I saw was around the big boy label. People worry they'll end up with a rack that's too large for a modest rehearsal space, or a console that has every feature except the ones they need. At the same time, there's a genuine fear of underdelivering on headroom, especially if you're running a few live mics, a couple of DI boxes, and maybe an external effects rack. The Mackie VLZ4 Series tries to sit right in the middle, a 24-channel, 4-bus layout that promises low noise, high headroom performance without the price of a full-size live sound board. Let's start with the everyday scenario most of us face. Imagine you run a weekly open mic night at a community venue. You have a vocal mic, a couple of acoustic guitars, a keyboard, and a drum kit that you're feeding through a couple of DI boxes. You need enough clean gain to capture the dynamics of the singers, but you also want a little compression on the drum overheads so the peaks don't blow out the mix. The VLZ4 gives you 20 Onyx Mic Preamps, which are Mackie's boutique-grade designs. In practice, that translates to a very transparent gain boost, the kind of thing you notice when a vocalist's breath detail comes through without a hissy background. I've heard a handful of engineers say the Onyx stage is noticeable when you compare it side by side with a generic preamp. The difference isn't flashy, but it's a subtle clarity that adds up over a full show. Another practical strength is the RF rejection. If you've ever set up a live mix near a wireless router, a stage monitor, or a cell tower, you know the occasional buzz can be maddening. Mackie claims improved RF rejection, and in the field reports I've read, the mixer held up well when placed near a Wi-Fi hotspot. The result was fewer unexpected hums, which saves you time hunting down the source during a gig. Now, let's talk about the 4-bus design. For a small to medium venue, you often end up routing your main PA, a monitor mix, a recording feed, and maybe a house FX return. Having 4 separate buses means you can assign each of those without needing external patch bays. The bus assignments are straightforward. You can pull a channel to any bus with a single knob, and the LED indicators make it clear where the signal is going. In a typical rehearsal, that means you could send the vocal channel to both the main PA and a recording bus simultaneously, perfect for capturing a live album without rerouting cables. One feature that's easy to overlook until you actually need it is the inline compression on channels 1720. Those 4 channels are often used for drums or bass where you want a quick, transparent squeeze. Because the compression is built directly into the channel strip, you avoid adding a separate compressor unit, which can free up rack space. In a real-world test, a user reported that applying a modest 3:1 ratio to the kick drum channel gave a tighter low end without the pumping effect you sometimes get from cheap compressors. On the downside, the VLZ4 is unpowered. That means you need a separate power conditioner or rack supply to run it. For a permanent installation in a house of worship or a studio rack, that's a minor inconvenience. But for a mobile gig where you rely on a single power source, you'll have to factor in an extra power strip. It's not a deal breaker, just an extra piece of gear to manage. Another practical limitation is the lack of built-in effects. Some mixers in this price range start to include reverb or delay modules, which can be handy for quick sound checks. The VLZ4 expects you to bring your own effects units, or route through a DAW. If you're a beginner looking for an all-in-one solution, that extra step can feel like a hurdle. Conversely, for someone who already has a preferred set of rack-mounted reverbs and delays, the clean signal path without internal FX can actually be a plus, because you maintain full control over your processing chain. So, who should consider pulling the trigger on this Mackie? If you're an experienced engineer who already owns a small rack of outboard gear, need reliable preamps, and want a solid platform to feed multiple outputs, the VLZ4 gives you that foundation without forcing you into a one-size-fits-all interface. It also makes sense for a church or community theater that runs the same mix night after night. The durability,